Welcome back, everyone, to SMS216, Week 5, Lesson 3. Today we're going to take a look at a few different topics. Nothing really too crazy, but very enjoyable at the same time. So by the time we are done this lesson, we should have explored subtotals in Excel, pivot tables, and pivot charts. So please make sure you have your file downloaded so you can follow along and make sure that you complete it as you see it, and that if you have any questions, you can always let me know at the end or through email at a time that's convenient for you. You'll notice that we have some data here. There's quite a bit of it. We've got a couple of rows of titles, and then we have this row here of headings. When we scroll down, you'll notice that we go down to about row, I think, 104. And so there's quite a bit of data. One of the things we're going to do is we are going to freeze this sheet so that we can always see rows 1, 2, 3, 4. Because as you notice, when we scroll down, it is lost at the top. To freeze it, we're going to click on A5. And so just remember this, when you're freezing, the active cell dictates what gets frozen. Right now, we're going to freeze everything above the active cell. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's nothing to the left, so we're not overly concerned with that. But we want to freeze rows 1, 2, 3, 4. We're in the right place. We're going to go to View. We're going to go to Freeze Panes. And we are going to choose Freeze Panes as the option. When that happens, you'll notice a line populates across here. This is not something that's printed. It's just to give you a visual that something is frozen. If I were to scroll down now, you'll notice that rows 1, 2, 3, 4 are always visible. That way there's no confusion with regards to what you're looking at. So this is Cook. It's the last name. It's not somebody's profession. You click on Kyle Williams. You'll see it's an accountant. It's not a last name of a client, and so on and so forth. So this is quite important to be able to freeze. Once I freezed it, I'm going to scroll all the way back up because we're going to review VLOOKUP. As you can see, we have a table here. So our goal is to, in column K, use our VLOOKUP table to populate a letter based on the amount here in the total. So let's do that now. Select the active cell, click FX for my function dialog box. I notice that VLOOKUP is in my list because I use it regularly. So I'm going to click on VLOOKUP, and then I'm going to click OK. It's at this point now that I need to put in the proper formula parameters to ensure that the VLOOKUP is done correctly. So first of all, as mentioned in the instructions just minutes ago, we need to use this value here, this total, compare it to the VLOOKUP table to give us the letter reference that we're hoping for. So let's do that now. It's VLOOKUP. We're going to choose, in this case, J5, because that's the cell. The table array is located in O2 to P7. And as you all remember, you need to make it absolute. So I'm going to press the function for key to make that happen. Notice I have dollar signs around the O, the 2, the P, the 7. That makes it completely absolute. Next, it's asking for the column index number. Well, in this table, there's 1, 2 columns only, and the second column has the letters that we're looking for. So I'm going to click on column index number. I'm going to put in 2 to represent the second column. And you'll notice it's already giving me a formula result here and here. So it looks like it's going to be D, which by my looks, if I'm comparing it, that looks right. The range lookup, we leave it blank. Okay? Do not put the word true. I know some people got excited because it does say you can use true or leave it blank. But from my lessons, from what I'm teaching you, do not put the word true in there because that just makes more work for the formula. The only time something should go in here is if it's false, which means we are looking for exactly 100 or exactly 200 or exactly 300 as you see here. But we're not. We're looking for anything in between them. So we leave it blank. So just a little refresher because I know some people ran into a little bit of trouble there. I'm going to click OK. And so now I've got my letter D, which is fantastic. And now I need to copy down this formula to the last row. Some of you will likely try and drag it down, which works. It's fine as long as you have the right pointer selected, which is this one here. But what I do to make my life easier, once I have the right one selected, I double click. And by double clicking, it will automatically copy down my formula all the way down to the bottom. So that saves me time and effort from trying to drag all the way down. Okay, so back to that. Double click the angry plus sign as I call it, and the formula will go down. If your formula breaks somewhere around here, it's because you messed up your absolute reference. So please always double check that your absolute reference for the table array is set correctly. The next thing we're going to take a look at is subtotaling. Now, what subtotaling allows us to do is organize our data by groups, and then within the groups, provide a calculation. So sometimes we'll want to put everything together and then throw a subtotal at the bottom that adds everything together, or counts everything together, or averages everything together. And so one of the best ways to do this is by using the subtotal tool. Now there are some things that you need to remember when using subtotal. First of all, the first thing you need to know is what is it that you want to group together. So in our spreadsheet here, we've got a whole bunch of letters here. We've got D, C, E, D, B, D, and it continues on all the way for 100 rows. Now, what we would need to do is if we said, okay, well, I want to know what the total amount charged was for each letter. Well, in order to do that, you would have to have each letter organized alphabetically, and then at the bottom of each letter, you can insert a subtotal. And the system will do it automatically for you. The issue is you have to remember that the very first step, once you've decided what it is that you want to subtotal, is that you need to sort your data correctly. 99% of the time students mess this up and get it wrong is because they forgot the first step, which is simply sort. So in order to sort this data, what I'm looking to do at this point is I need to select from A4 all the way down to the last cell here in K104. The reason why I need to select it all is because I need to sort it properly. So these headings will be used to allow me to sort the data. So remember, select the data properly, and then once you have that, you must go to sort. So we can go to the data tab at the top here. We click on data tab, and then you're going to find this sort button in the middle. This sort button in the middle is going to allow us to click on it, and from there we're going to then sort by the letter. So we scroll down to collections letter, and then we have an option of A to Z or Z to A if you want to go in reverse order, whichever you choose. But at this point, any one will work. I'm going to click OK. Now what you'll notice is your entire data set is sorted by letters. All the B's are together, all the C's, all the D's, and so on and so forth. By using the subtotal tool, it will allow us to make a calculation that lets us put in between B and C a row and give you a total. In between C and D, a row, and they will total. And this will all happen automatically. What you need to do is you need to go, with it still selected, you need to go over to Data tab again if you're not there, and then you need to move over to the outline area on the ribbon. And you're looking for some button called Subtotal. And so when I click on it, it's going to open up a dialog box. And here is where it gets super important that you follow the recipe. And if you do, you'll always come out with a proper ending. All right. So first of all, at the box, it says we're going to run the subtotals at each change in file number. 99.999% of the time, you are going to use what you sorted by. So if you sorted by collections, this needs to be collections. If you sorted by file number, that's a different story. Then you would put this as file number. If you sorted by last name or accountant, then this needs to match. So always remember, whatever you sort by, this first box here must be what it was. Then you need to use a function. So what do you want to do? You want to add things together. You want to average things together, count, max, min. There are so many different formulas that you can use in the subtotal tool. We're going to start off with just a basic sum. We want to see the total. So we want a total right in here between B and C of this amount. And then it says, well, what do you want to add a subtotal to? Well, basically, it's thinking it wants you to add the collections together. Well, you can't add collections together because they're letters. So you need to correct this. You need to say, no, 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 no. I want to add up the totals and take the collections out of it. I want to know what my totals are going to be. Or maybe, you know what? You want to know what the billable hours are going to be. So then you would change it to billable hours. You need to decide what it is that you want to calculate. But as per my instructions, you want to calculate what the totals are completely between each changing letter. Once you've done those 3 steps, it is quite simple. All you do is you click OK. What you're going to see now is you're going to notice that we have amounts. Look. And you're going to see an amount, an amount, an amount. But notice what happened. I made a mistake. And so this is why it's very, very important that you don't make a mistake. You see what I did? I didn't change it. I was just preaching to you. Make sure you change it based on what it was sorted. And here I went, made a mistake. It should be collections here. Now let me run it again. That is how it's supposed to look. So we got a B total, a C total, and a D total. And it keeps going all the way down. So I just demonstrated how easy it is to make a mistake. And you know what? We all make mistakes, and that is normal. It was just we need to pay attention to detail, and I'm no exclusion. All right, so we've got our totals, which you can see here, which is fantastic. But I want to draw your attention to something else. Once you've created your subtotals, you're going to notice that in the left-hand corner, you're going to see a 1, 2, and 3. This is fairly new. It wasn't there before. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to cycle through the different views. Let's take a look. If I click on 3, that's the view we're in currently. If I click on 2, it takes you to another view. This one is a summary. Look, all of your letters, your grand total, everything nicely organized. It is not broken down any other way. It's simply based on your letters. So it's a different view that you can work with. And then number 1 just gives you the grand total. So again, just get familiar with 3, 2, and 1, and get an idea of which one will benefit you when you're looking into certain things. So let me go back to number 3. This is the full view. So here's what you need to do once you're done your subtotals. If you are just using it for analysis, that's great. If you do not want to save your file with subtotals, then you must remove them. And so a lot of the time students will ask, what's the easiest way to remove subtotals so that I don't send it with subtotals and scare somebody who doesn't know anything about Excel? So the easiest way to remove your subtotals is to click anywhere outside, Control A. That's going to select the entire worksheet. Okay, so let me repeat that. I'm going to click outside of the subtotals, anywhere, click Control A, and then I'm going to click the subtotal button again at the top. It's going to yell at me, which is fine. It's not happy with me at all. That's what I want to see. And I click OK. At this point, I'm going to remove all here at the bottom corner. The reason I want to do that is so that it will actually remove any extra rows that it may have put in at the bottom, because future subtotals will get messed up if you don't catch that. So it is very, very important that once you've done your subtotal and you've gotten the information you require, to remove everything in order to run another one. And we're going to do one more example while we're at it. Okay, so next example of a subtotal will be, let's see, we are going to calculate the average billable hours charged. Okay, so we're looking at the average billable hours charged by Marty O'Donovan. So keep this in mind. Listen to what is being said. Okay, so we want to average the billable hours grouped by Marty O'Donovan. So I've added in the word grouped. So we're looking at putting all the Marty O'Donovans together, and then at the end of Marty O'Donovan, before it goes into the next accountant, we need to get an average billable hours total. Okay, so let's do that. Remember the first step. First step is select all of your data, then sort it by the group. So we need to then go to sort. We don't want it sorted by collections anymore. It needs to be sorted by the accountant. So we're going to choose the accountant field. Perfect. Make sure we sort it. And so what now happens is all the Kyle Williams are together, all the Martys, all the Maureen's, and so on and so forth. So that's extremely important. With our data now still selected, we're going to go to the subtotal tool on the data tab. And this time I'm not going to make the mistake. I'm going to fix it. So this is going to become accountant because that's what we sorted by. We did say we wanted to create an average of billable hours. So this cannot be sum. It needs to change to average. And last but not least, we're no longer looking at the total. We're going to uncheck it. We are looking to average the billable hours only. So that's where we're at here. Once you've confirmed that these are accurate, then you can click OK. Once it's done, you're going to notice that Kyle Williams, his average billable hours, 350 or 3.5, however you want to look at it. And then we continue down. Marty O'Donovan, 4.69. Maureen, 4.33. And so that is in Outline View 3. Move to Outline View 2 for a compact look at each one of the accountants. Perfect. And then last but not least, if you just wanted to grand average, what was the grand average for all the accountants? You're looking at 4.30. All right, it is at this point now that you've done your analysis and you need to remove your subtotals. So what you need to do, remember, click outside of anywhere outside, Control A, which selects all, the entire worksheet. Go back to subtotal at the top. Look at the warning, say OK. And at this point, you're going to select Remove All. Perfect. And now you should be right back to where you were at the beginning. Now we're going to take a quick moment and take a look at something else called pivot tables. Okay, so basically, pivot tables allow us to take large amounts of data and then quickly manipulate the fields so that we can do some analysis and create charts if we choose to. Okay, so what we need to do here in order to create a pivot table is we need to go and select our data correctly again. So that is A4 to K104. All right, so we got to make sure we have our data selected so that when we go to insert a pivot table, we have the data already selected and we're not looking for it at that time. So please make sure you got that all set up. Include your headings because these will be very, very important once we start doing the actual dragging and dropping of the fields. And so once that's done, we're going to go to Insert at the top. And then to the left here on my version of Excel, I've got the pivot table option. Once I click it, let's see what happens. It's asking for the range A4 to K104. Absolutely. We've already pre-selected it, which is incredible. Then it says, where do you want to put the pivot table report? Well, we want it on a new sheet. We do not want it in the same sheet because that just makes a mess of things. And that's just one of my preferences. So once I click OK, something's going to happen. Boom. So it now creates us a brand new sheet. And at first glance, you look at this and you're like, yo, what's happening here? What is this? What is this huge mess of stuff? Well, it's really incredible. If you look on the right-hand side, you're going to notice these are your pivot table fields. So it basically took our data, our sheet of data, and created a table in which we can drag and drop the fields. Let's think back to when we did the subtotals, and let's see how we can recreate a subtotal calculation, but instead using a pivot table. So let's think of the first one. The first one was, okay, we need to group together the collections letters. And then we need to figure out what the subtotals were. So let's take a look at this. If we take collections letter down here on the right hand side and we put it in the rows category in this quadrant, you're going to notice that we've got all our letters. Okay, pretty cool so far. Next, what we wanted to do, remembering the example we used in subtotals, we want to create the sum of the totals. So in the values quadrant at the bottom, we can choose sum of totals. Now, I should have told you to write down the numbers when you did the subtotal. However, I already know that these numbers are identical to what we did in the subtotal. So what happens is when we are in class and this is being taught, most people really, they look at the subtotal process and they get a little stressed out because it's very involved, lots to remember. Then we jump into the pivot table method, and students typically realize, wow, what an amazing time saver this is. And this is the reason why pivot tables are usually one of those things that employers are looking for and usually put it in the job description when they're looking to hire people. The ability to take large amounts of data and to quickly be able to analyze it. We just took 100 rows of data and used a pivot table to quickly give us some analysis on exactly what it is that the totals would be. So that way we can quickly go and show somebody if they needed it. So we can do analysis rather quickly. And the next one we're going to do is we're going to recreate the actual average one that we did as well. So let's take a look. To clear this out, we just left click it and take it out of the quadrant. Left click it, take it out of the quadrant. And that takes us back to where we were at the beginning. So now if they came to you and said, listen, we need to know the average billable hours for each accountant, now we can simply take accountant, drop it into the rows, and this time it was the average billable hours. Take the billable hours and throw it into values. The problem is it's adding it up. So we need to switch the formula so that it is average instead of sum. To do that, down here in values, we're going to click and we're going to go to value field settings right here. And instead of sum, we're going to switch it to average. Once you do that, you're going to click OK. And what you're going to notice now is that the average has been implemented here instead of the sum. And it says so right here at the top. At this point, you're done. You've done your analysis on your average. You're going to remove accountant and you are going to remove the average. Here at this point, you can actually play around and drag and drop different fields into your quadrants to see how it impacts your pivot table. I'll show you another method that's kind of neat. So first, I'm going to do this. I want the accountant to be my filter. And we haven't spoken about that just yet, but I'm going to explain to you how this plays out. So I want to have the accountants so I can filter between them. I'm going to put area in the columns. So now I can see all my areas. And then I'm going to do, let's see what else. we're going to go collections to give us a little bit more information in the row. And lastly, I'm going to add total to the values column. So now within 4 clicks, I've taken the 100 rows of data and I've broken it down. So now I can see all the accountants, each of the collection letters they represent, and each area that is impacted and what are the totals. So that is a really amazing way to be able to analyze the data as quickly as we've just done there. Here's what we need to do next. We need to see how this filter plays out. So right now this is showing us for all accountants, but let's say you were only concerned with one accountant. If you want to click on the filter now, you can go in there and you can choose only one accountant that you want to highlight. So right now I want to show what Kyle Williams is doing. Only Kyle Williams. Well, I can click on Kyle Williams, click OK, and now the data automatically transforms itself to show only Kyle Williams. And then you can go back and you can change it and say, you know what, now I want to see Rosa Martinez. Click on Rosa. Okay, now the data automatically adjusts. There's no better way to take large amounts of data, organize it quickly, and do analysis. And again, this is why pivot tables are extremely important. At this point, I'm going to go back to all, so I can see all of them. I want to see all my data again, and perfect. Everything is back in action. Keep in mind, you guys, you can take these numbers and you can format them. You know their totals. You can make them money if you choose to, like so it looks proper. Okay? So just keep that in mind when you're working with the data. The last thing I want to show you is, well, what if you want to take this data that we have here and show it in a graph form? You don't want to just see the data as it is now. You want to see what it looks like in a chart. Well, let's take a look. Keep in mind, here's another thing I should have mentioned. When you click outside of your pivot table, notice how your information on the right disappears. And I've had students, get really scared about this and freak out a bit that this disappeared and they're not sure why. To get this stuff back, you just have to be inside your pivot table. So do not fear, do not stress. That's why it disappears. It's when you're outside. When you're inside, it should come back. All right. So back to the ribbon at the top here. There's 2 tabs. There's Analyze and there is Design. We're not going to concern ourselves with making it pretty. We are going to concern ourselves with how do we take this and convert it to a chart form. Some people in the past, what they've done is they've highlighted the information, they've gone to Insert, and they use a chart. But that's not how it works. And I want to make sure I draw your attention to that because we do not want to do that. With a pivot table designed, we need to go to the Analyze tab. And if you look to the right on your ribbon, you're going to have an option for a pivot chart. What this is going to do is take your chart or your data table and convert it to a chart for you based on whatever chart style you want. This can't get any easier, okay? So we're inside the pivot table. I click pivot chart and it's going to throw out a suggestion on what I should use, and I can hover over it and it'll kind of give me an idea of what's a good chart. But in reality, you need to choose the chart that makes best sense for whatever you're working on and go from there. I'm going to stick with the column. I think column works really well, and it's a clustered column. I could decide to do a 3D clustered column. It really depends on what I'm trying to do and how good I'm trying to make it look. I'm going to click on 3D. Sure, everything seems to be 3D these days. And I'm going to click OK. And now what you're going to notice is that it's actually given us a chart now of this data. What's amazing is that this chart is directly linked to this table. So what happens is, if I go and I say I want to sort by, I want to only have Kyle Williams, take a look. I click here, Kyle Williams, I click OK, the data changes here, the data changes here. Okay, and vice versa. If I'm in the chart and I want to go back to all my accountants, I click on all and I click OK, and it will then change both. So it is such an incredible tool. It's quite amazing and a lot of fun. If you guys haven't had experience with charts before, I highly recommend that you play around with the options that you're allowed to choose. Like for example, I'm going to take this chart. I'm going to go up here. I'm going to take a look at this chart tools options at the top. There's analyze, there's design, and then there's format. What I'm looking for is the design, okay? And then there's this option to move your chart. One thing that I personally like to do is I personally like to keep this data separate from my chart. I like to have my own sheet for my chart. So this is something I do. And so what I would suggest is select your chart, pivot chart tools at the top, design, and then move the chart to a new sheet. Okay, so go to a new sheet, give it a name of whichever you prefer, and then click OK. And what you'll see now is you have a dedicated sheet at the bottom specifically for your chart so that you can make modifications as you see fit. So back to design, maybe I would want to explore changing the colors of the charts. Maybe I want to grayscale it out. Maybe I want to add some titles. Right now there's no chart title. What if I want to add one, right? So you can do all these things. I'm just going to type in here, right? Make one that makes sense. So there are so many different options you can choose from, including changing colors. You can go and click on the chart elements option. You can play around with these different options that you have access to. Okay, and so what I would highly recommend between this week and next week is that you actually explore some charts and see if they talk about charts in the LinkedIn Learning at all, because we don't really have a chapter for it in our course, but it's still a very useful thing to learn. Okay, so that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed it, and I know it's quite a bit of stuff, but again, none of it was overly complicated or crazy intense. So I'm sure you guys will be able to pick this up quite nicely. And of course, if you don't or you have questions, I'm always here for you. Just make sure you email me. You have yourselves a great day, and we'll see you soon.